Hi, welcome to the Transfarm YouTube channel. Transfarm is a project funded by the Central Europe Interreg Programme about precision agriculture and many other issues related to it. Today we're with Patrick Crehan, who's the director of CKA, Crehan and Kusano Associates based in Brussels. Patrick is an expert on innovation and cluster management, and he's been holding also training for the clusters involved in the Transfarm project. So today we're going to discuss some of the issues related to the adoption of innovation in agriculture. So thanks for joining us today, Patrick. First question is, which barriers do farmers face at the moment? I mean, which is the most urgent bottleneck to be solved for adopting efficient innovation in agricultural practices?
Good question, Giuseppe, and thanks for having me on your show. I guess the biggest change that's happening in agriculture is the use of data and the intensification of data use, the amount of data, and the kind of uses for which it is needed. And it's not just in operations, you know, making operations more efficient, increasing production, etc. It's also in administration. It's worth pointing out that up to 70% of the time of farm advisors is spent helping them complete paperwork and deal with administration. So there's a lot to be done in the area of just facilitating administration for farmers. And quite frankly, I think this is an area that has stood still almost for the last 20 years. There's a little bit of progress being made. But that aside, you know, if we go back to the data issue, one of the problems of working with data is that most farmers have no formal training in this. They're not computer scientists. So they really only have a vague idea of what the data is, where it is, and why and how it's going to be useful for them. And one of the challenges is that, you know, a guy comes in on a tractor, he does some work on the farm. For example, he spreads manure, or he cuts the hay, or he harvests the corn. And all the time he's collecting data. There are hundreds of sensors in the machine. And the point is that this data is only going to be useful the next year. You know, so once you've cut the corn, you're going to use the data perhaps when it comes to sowing corn again the next year, or whatever else it is that you sow. And so the issue is, who has the data, where is it, etc. And am I going to have to use the same contractor? Can I have a different contractor? Or if the contractor uses different machinery, is the machinery going to be compatible with that? But that's just to illustrate one of the kind of problems that's there. And it's very hard for a farmer to anticipate all of those needs spread out over time. And I guess the other thing is, I'm just talking about the normal farming operations there. But the other thing is that farming is no longer just about producing food and feed and fiber. That's the old view of farming. Even 20 years ago, we spoke about the multifunctionality of farming, the fact that a farmer provides many other services beyond the production of food, feed, and fiber. And generally, the farmer is not really compensated for the provision of these services. And now, in particular, with the explosion in the global population and climate change and pressures on the food system, we see that these services are going to become more critical, not only for the work of the farmer, but more in general for life on the planet. And so I think we're moving into an area where the farmer has to be more realistically and better compensated for the provision of what you might call ecological services. And this, again, is going to rely on the use of data and on the use of technology. And it's going to be a challenge not only for farmers, but for those involved in technology transfer to anticipate this.
Yeah.
And it'll require training and various other changes to the system. And I think a foresight initiative on this issue would be really useful because it's complicated and it needs to be thought through fully so that all of the concerned actors can learn what role they have to play and start to get involved in the way that they should.
Patrick, since we're in a context where complexity seems to be growing. More data, more technology, more devices. Yeah. So we have the feeling very often that the farmer is actually lost in the middle of these data and technology and technologies and potential options. Yeah. So would the role of, let's say, extension services or local agencies in charge of guiding farmers through innovation pathways be relevant? I mean, I guess it should probably be reinforced. So what are the kind of mechanisms we got in place at regional level that might help at least tackle the challenge?
This is a key issue now. And first of all, I just point out that, some farmers are very sophisticated and they know a lot about these things. And especially the young ones, they might even have degrees in IT and earth observation or biotechnology, etc. And they travel, they travel from Europe all around the world and they really know what's going on. But they're a minority of farmers, and the majority of farmers, they have some vague ideas about what's going on, but they don't really understand it. But I would say the same goes even for the extension officers, because they're in the same situation. They all have their areas of expertise. But I would say that few of them really understand the implications of this data revolution that's going on. Just a simple example, if I have in some countries now, a lot of work is going on to sequence the genomes of the cattle or especially in the dairy and beef sector, to improve the performance of the herd and get better quality milk and better quality beef and improve animal health. But where is that data? The data ultimately is commercially important data for the farmer. Under the GDPR, the farmer should have this data. But usually it lies with the researchers who are involved in these projects, and for understandable reasons, they want to maintain control over this data. So when the farmer sells the cow, for example, or an animal for finishing in the beef sector, where is the data then? Does it follow the animal? And you can say the same with land, work that's being done to improve the land, its hydrology, the carbon in the soil, etc. Again, where is this data being held? And if the land is sold or leased, is it available to the owner of that land? So once you start to dig into it, you see that there's an awful lot of complexity hidden there. And it's not just a challenge for the farmers to understand, what's going on. It's also a challenge for the scientists, because they are all really good on their area of expertise, but few have the opportunity to stand back and really understand things from a systemic perspective and see what kind of collaboration and what kind of data sharing needs to be done. And I think there's even an argument for each country setting up some kind of a data sharing infrastructure to make sure that there is a safe place for farmers to keep their data, and so that the data related to the work they do and the land that they own or farm, etc., it's available for whoever needs it to improve its productivity, and also to improve the provision of these ecological services down the line.
Thanks. And Patrick, last question. If you were a cluster manager in charge of guiding local farmers through this maze of technologies and data, what is the first step you would take?
Well, I think the first thing is it should be high on the priorities of cluster managers in this area, to get a grip on the role of data, and also to avoid a situation where it becomes siloed. The data is collected, but it's not being made available to those who need it. And, so one way to do it would be to have some kind of a strategic foresight initiative where you gather people together and you work through scenarios as to, how is a farmer over the lifetime or the life cycle of an animal, such as a dairy cow, or the life cycle of a farm that might be in the production of grains or, cereals, etc. And get a big picture as to, where's the data generated, where's it going to be stored, and also how does it interact with the business needs of the farmer. And I think this kind of reflection really needs to be done, and it's worth doing it at regional level, because a lot depends on the support for the farmer A lot depends on the type of farming. Is it wine growing? Is it beef or dairy? Is it market gardening? And the answers to these questions are really going to rely on having a realistic and detailed understanding of what the business is like and how it will change because of data over the next decade. So I would say some kind of a strategic reflection like that, a working group. I think it's really useful to set that up now and get people thinking about these things as soon as possible.
Okay, so some data policy at regional level or cluster level, I would say.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And also just, we're in a process of CAP reform. And what this means is that the European Union has delegated, aspects of the common agricultural policy to the member states. Now, it's not entirely clear how this will filter down to regional level, but different regions really are different in terms of, the kind of farmers, the size of the farms, what they farm, etc., whether they are part of a local food system or a global food system. And I think these issues are really important. And I think we should also consider about a CAP strategy that's differentiated not only at member state level, but also at regional level. And this is where the cluster managers can really play a role in driving this conversation forward.
Thanks a lot, Patrick, again for your contributions to the project, and thanks for you for watching. Thanks to you for watching the Transfarm 4.0 YouTube channel. Transfarm is a project funded by the Central Europe Interreg Programme. Cooperation is central. Thank you. See you next time.
Thank you, Giuseppe. Take care.